What's up, everybody? Welcome to State of the Nation, the Athletics Raiders podcast. I'm Jimmy Durkin in Alameda, joined by Vic Tafur at 1400 Bar and Grill, and we're hanging out with a couple players. We got Frostee, Rucker, and Andrew DePaola, a couple new Raiders. Welcome to the Bay Area, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
How's it feel? What's the biggest adjustment to being a Raider? What's it been like moving into the area? Just give me the first taste.
Since I'm the elder, I'll go first. All right. No, this is Frostee, guys. No, it feels good. Being around the area, the environment, like Andrew was talking about a second before he went on, the weather and just the whole energy of coming into camp. So I feel great. Drew?
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. I've only played in California twice, and that's the only time I've ever been in the state of California.
Wow.
So moving out here was quite the adjustment. But me and my wife love it. We love the area. We love the weather. And then just as a team standpoint, it's hard not to be excited when every single person in the building is so pumped up about this year. The staff, the new players. There's a certain buzz, a vibe around the facility. And, I know every day I come in, I can feel it, and you feed off of it, and it just helps energize you and get you ready to go.
There's a rumor that Jon Gruden has a lot of energy. Is there any truth to that?
I guess there's some truth to that, yeah.
Yeah, he really has control of this team. Obviously he's just coming back, and that confidence, that level of swag and confidence coming back and somewhere he's familiar with, and to be around a bunch of guys that are energetic to win again, and with him leading us, it all looks positive.
So when you guys are signing, does he close the deal, gets on the phone and kind of closes the deal? Or how's that conversation when he gets on the phone with you guys?
He definitely closed me. He made me come out here and pretty much close the door and say, "You ain't leaving." So he got me, and I think I made a good decision with doing that. He made it very comfortable for me, and to know the atmosphere would be right. It's a bunch of hardworking guys, young guys, a good group of guys that want to learn, want to get better, and at the same time that are ready to dominate. And I'm excited.
Yeah, I know personally, when I was going through the negotiations during the free agency period, I believe he got on the phone with my agent and just kind of said flat out, "Hey, I want him. What's it going to take to get him here?" Good thing long snappers aren't really crushing the market as far as money goes. So, but just hearing that from my agent was like, wow. Like the head coach got on saying he wants me. It was a no-brainer after that. So, yeah, he definitely has some persuasive techniques. But, again, it's tough not to feed off his energy. The guy's passionate every day about coming to work, and it shows.
Frostee, for you, a definitely unique situation. You signed right before minicamp.
It was great.
You missed the whole off season.
It was great.
What was that like for you? Was there a crash course to have to get up to speed before you went into the off season, or
as a professional, you always work out and you always stay ready, so you don't have to waste time getting ready, right? So I was training. I visited a couple teams, and it just didn't work out. It wasn't the right fit for me. And just like Andrew said again, when Coach Gruden, tells you he wants you, and in this league, it's not a lot of times that someone will reach out and say, I want you here. And there's not a lot of times where you get to pretty much pick where you want to go either. Mm-hmm. So it was a unique situation for me. I bust my toe. I worked very hard and to prepare myself for the opportunity. And when it presented itself, it was the right fit. I was real familiar with Paul Gunther.
Yeah.
He was assistant coach with me when I was in Cincinnati in my younger days, and now he's a defensive coordinator here. And I was real familiar with the system, and it just seemed like a good fit for me. I'm a California native, Southern Cal, but I'm a California native, and I played out here, playing versus Cal and Stanford, and playing versus the Raiders and the Niners over the years, being in the same conference as the 49ers and our division, I should say. It was a no-brainer. I wanted to be back on the soil.
Andrew, I think I heard you knew Gruden from before. You guys had some history. Is that true, back in Florida, or a little bit, or not really?
Just the Tampa connection.
Yeah.
And it's actually funny. The day I signed here, he was showing me around, and we were talking about Tampa. He was telling me about some restaurants and some places to visit in the area. And I didn't know he still had his house down there. So we even talked about that. And I was like, actually, I played golf the day before I flew out there on that course. And I went right by his house. So it was just kind of funny that, we were able to kind of connect in that way.
For you, I'm always interested, when and how you end up becoming a long snapper. I know you played quarterback a little bit, right, in college. You came into college as a quarterback, and then even were a wide receiver, right? Your last year, you were wide receiver. So from quarterback, this guy, maybe the greatest statistical college quarterback in history. He's 1 for 1. 15 yards, a touchdown, I think a 5.56 passer rating.
Drops the mic.
So how did the whole long snapper thing come along?
Oh, man. So it was actually funny. Growing up, my dad could do it. So he would show us, and I just thought it was a cool trick. I really didn't think it was a football play. I did it for 1 year in high school. I was the starting quarterback as a sophomore on varsity and the long snapper. Don't ask me how that happened. Got recruited as a quarterback to Rutgers. Third string, didn't play, wanted to play. They moved me to receiver where I actually did play. End of that season, our snapper tears his ACL. So I jump in and do it. I'm like, yeah, I can do it. Why not? Jumped in and did it. Did it for the remaining, I think it was 3 or 4 games that year. And it's funny, that year in the bowl game, I was the backup quarterback, backup receiver, and the starting long snapper. So my meetings were fun. And then the next season, we didn't have a backup. We didn't have anybody that could do it. So my coach in college, Coach Shiano at the time, said, hey, look, you got to do this for the team. I was like, all right, that's fine, not a big deal. He said, hey, if you're good enough, this could be something you could pursue in NFL. I was like, really? All right, I'll give it a shot. And here I am today.
So do you tell coaches now, like, I can throw it a little bit, like, give me a play?
No, I think my arm's pretty much gone at this point. I mean, seeing guys like Derek Carr sling that ball around, I'm like, I don't think I got that anymore.
How about you, Frostee? What was your background growing up? Were you always the guy getting after the quarterback, or were you kind of on the other side of the ball for a while?
Well, growing up, high school and stuff like that, I was a running back, believe it or not, and a middle linebacker. And I went to college as a linebacker. And Pete Carroll actually switched my position to defensive end. He gave me an opportunity. He told me with my frame that I would grow and get a lot bigger. And he said he'd seen my body type before. And just like Andrew said, again, I'm getting good at that. He said, do it for the team. This is an amazing opportunity for you to get on the field. I went to USC from the era of the 2003, 05, and won a lot of ball games. And to get on the field there was very tough because there's 5-star recruits every time you turned around, a new class coming in, a transfer, a JUCO guy. There's always competition. And he said, if you want a shot to go to the bigs, you got to put your hand in the dirt, because we got a lot of good, talented linebackers. Not to say I wasn't nice, because I'm not ever going to say that. But so you got to pretty much drop your ego a little bit and say, if I want to make a career out of this, and I want to help the team also, and be on the field, I just did it and it worked out. The transition wasn't too bad. I had a great group of guys that pretty much taught me how to play D-line. I was already physical and I had enough attitude. And then it just, it's about hand placement and get-offs and different techniques like that I picked up. And it worked out for me. I just kept battling, kept working, and, before you know it, I ended up being a third-round pick, and here we are, year 13.
I think I was reading you were a 1,000-yard running back, right, in high school?
Absolutely.
What was your style? Were you a little Marshawn, just bouncing off guys?
I was everything. I was fast. I can run right through your chest. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pat myself on the back, but I was pretty good at it. And that's a thing. When you play offense and you're an offensive-minded guy, then you get to switch sides and be defense. You kind of know tendencies on running backs, and you kind of understand how certain running backs, hit the holes or how they do it, if they're patient, they're not, and you kind of get a feel for it. And being a defensive end, it's how you got to play your blocks too. You don't want to shed too early or stay on the block too late, because some running backs are hesitant back there, some hit the hole right away. So it's good to have a feel for it in a sort. And again, you capitalize on what you know.
I know kickers have like a club and punters have a club. How about snappers? Like, do you know John Condo a little bit from over the years? Or
I met him. I met John once. Actually, when Oakland came to Tampa to play, when I was part of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and actually, Condo went to University of Maryland, where I'm from. So I'd heard about him, known about him for a long time. Really respected him, looked up to him, respected the way he played the game. I mean, he was one of the best snappers in the league for as long as he was in the league. So, yeah, I know Jon a little bit.
Got big shoes to fill, I guess, on the way.
Absolutely. I mean, he did it for how many years? 10 years here. So, yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, I was brought here for a reason, so I'm just going to be me and play my game and help the team win any way I can.
What's it been like to work with some of the young other specialists on this team? Johnny Townsend, Eddie Pinheiro, guys that, obviously Giorgio Tavecchio, who was a nice story last year. Guys that are some young guys that we're trying to see what they can become.
Yeah, so far it's been awesome. Everybody, Johnny, Eddie, Giorgio, they're all hungry guys they want to get better, they want to work, and best part is they want to be on this team. So. I know we got a little bit of a kicker battle going into camp here, and when I say little bit, a lot of it.
Yeah.
Neither of those guys is going to concede the job, so it's going to be a great show, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just hoping I can give them all good snaps going into this, but those guys are actually really great young guys. I'm excited to work with them. And on the other end of that, I've never been really the older vet going into camp. I've been like the second, third year guy, so I'm kind of on the other end this year where they're asking me questions about how the season works and how's camp going to go, what's practice going to be like. So I'm like, man, I've become that guy. But it's awesome. It's awesome.
You know that feeling, Frostee.
A little bit.
Similar question for you. The Raiders drafted 3 guys up front, young guys, and Key, Hall, and Hurst. Is it too early for a first impression, or what have you seen from those guys just out of the gate?
Well, part of when I signed here before that, I watched a little film with Coach Gunther, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't walking to a situation with some guys that really didn't know ball. Obviously when you're a veteran guy, they expect you to lead and show them and, give them pointers. But then when you watch film, it's like, whoa, that's going to be a project. Like this guy maybe wasn't coached up to par, or, he could just, coaches can get you only so far in college, and then, the leadership and the coaches that have experience in the NFL can drive you through that. And these guys, I haven't really seen that. I watched pretty much all their OTAs, and then I was with them on the field for the mini camp. And these guys are sharp. They've been well coached, and they're ready to play. I mean, their hand placement, their get-offs, their knowledge of the plays, where they're going, and it wasn't a lot of mental mistakes. And for younger guys, that's the biggest thing: their mental mistakes and retaining a playbook. And these guys, and that probably do hats off with the coach also, and getting those guys ready to be out there, because you never want your group to be the one that's always getting pointed out for doing things wrong or bad steps or whatever it is. So those guys were prepared, and they came to work, and they're running the ball. And the film I watched, they're excited, energetic, and that's what you want. You want guys that are ready to go. And I feel like my need here is to go out there and show them, when I get my opportunity, how it's done, and how to have knockback at the line of scrimmage and be physical and be stout against the run, and don't be one-dimensional and just pass rush and things like this. How to read a play, how to read an offensive lineman, and pre-snap reads and things like that. Little things that I got in my box that's what I'm supposed to share with those guys.
For both of you guys, you talked about when you got that call from Jon Gruden, but just what was kind of that immediate impression when you thought, okay, the Raiders, this is a team that 2 years ago was in the playoffs, had Derek Carr got hurt, who knows what happens. Last year, obviously, was a regression for this team, but you look at all the young pieces on this team, I think everyone looks at the Raiders as a team that if they can make this quick turnaround, they can get right back to where they were. So what was just that immediate impression when the Raiders called and you're thinking about, okay, this is the team I'm going to?
Well, I came from a similar situation with when I was in Arizona, Carson being hurt and going all the way to the conference championship to the next year not being in the playoffs at all, and being below 500 that year, then the last year battling back to be 500. So I love the structure of it. I love the bones of it. They have good players, and now they have a leader that's not going anywhere, and someone that's going to be committed and be here for years to come, to be able to take these draft classes and do something with them. And like I said, it was a great opportunity for me to just be able to be around and surrounded by the right situation. And I feel like the attitude of this team, just going into camp or going into that season, needs to be, we don't need to say too much. Let's just go out there and prove it. Let's go out there and play hard. Let's go out there and play for one another. Let's be rowdy. Let's, feed the black hole. You know, we know the Coliseum's going to be rocking.
Yep.
We all know what's going on, and the best thing we can do is put our best foot forward for these fans.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, you know, when you get that call from Coach Gruden, and like I mentioned earlier, you hear his voice and his passion for the game. Just having a convo with the guy, you can tell he's no BS. I mean, he's straightforward, tells you how he feels. You don't have to guess with what he's thinking. And then similarly for me, from a special teams standpoint, just talking with Coach Bisaccia, I mean, him being one of the, if not the most well-respected special teams coach in the league right now, that was amazing, because just hearing about him in my 4 or 5 years in the league and hearing, you know, from people that knew him and played for him, what kind of coach he is. I mean, you know, another snapper friend of mine who's out of the league now told me he would come back just to play for that man.
Wow.
So I was like, wow, I got to play for this guy. I got to sign the contract as quickly as possible. So, and I think the Oakland Raiders have sort of a stigma, if you will, throughout history. I mean, they're gritty, hard-nosed, grinded-out football team. I mean, the black hole, you know, their fans. It's just known around the league. This is a gritty team. It's a tough team. I think that's what we're trying to bring back and instill. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun this year.
Who's more intense, Gruden or Bisaccia?
That's a tough call. That's a tough call. I'm going to go with Bisaccia just because I deal with him on a daily basis.
Right.
But, I mean, they go hand in hand, those two. I mean, one feeds off the other, and it's like a snowball effect. And I'm trying to be like, slow down. It's just OTAs. But it's amazing. So coming to work for those guys, if you're feeling out of it or tired or down, just have a conversation with one of them, and it's better than a cup of coffee.
Frosty, I know you're talking about how you played for, you know, when Gunther was on the staff there in Cincinnati. I know he wasn't coordinating that defense, but just how much did that familiarity with him, you know, help coming here? And what do you think you can do for this defense? Where do you think you fit in?
Well, I know Coach Gunther. He comes from he's an understudy of Mike Zimmer, and we see with Mike Zimmer, he finally got his opportunity in Minnesota, and all he's done is win and getting better every year. So that being said, I feel my role here is just, you know, to play as hard as I can. And again, like Andrew just said, you know, this team
Smart guy, right?
You know, this team's built on grit and attitude, and I think that's how I play the game. I've always played with a little bit of I can't say a chip on my shoulder, it's like a boulder. You know, it's like it's your attitude towards your work. It's your attitude showing up every single day. If it's the weight room, the training room, any facet of this game, you have to have the right attitude going into it. And I feel like that's one thing that just makes me a Raider, is that my attitude fits it. You know, the persona of it is just what it is. And I think going into this year, I want to, you know, add some leadership into my room, some accountability, and really just being a physical player and just having, again, the right attitude towards why we're doing this. And, you know, everyone wants to win. And, you know, there's a lot of people talking about other teams and whatnot. And I know one thing that I'm going to instill in my guys is that we're just going to lead by example. You know, I want to make sure my room is just the example of how to get it done. Each and every day when we're going through these highs and lows of training camp, we should always be the high. You know, they should never have to question our D-line's effort and our will to get the job done. You know, we got to face a big O-line every day.
Yeah.
You know, a big, nasty O-line. They got a new O-line coach in there that is he don't play no games. And I know he don't like me much because I played for him a lot when he was in Seattle. And he's got a real good group of guys that have bonded together, and they play really well together. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited for the challenge because it can only make us better. You know, the way we compete and the way we get after each other is going to make sure Sundays go well.
We were talking before about training camp, how nice it is in Napa to set up. You walk from your hotel room bed to the field. Like, have you guys any horror stories, training camp, any bad experiences in your past with training camp, or anything you didn't like about the experience, or you all just love the whole thing?
Well, from my standpoint, all I've heard is great things about this training camp, and I've never heard great things about training camp. So that scares me, right? That's the thing that jumps out to me.
There's something nobody's telling you.
Training camp's cool? I don't know. Maybe I should, you know. But horror stories, I mean, just from being a rookie, taking people's pads and in the middle of Georgetown, Kentucky, where I practiced when I was in the Cincinnati Bengals. It's in the middle of Kentucky somewhere. I swear, you look far enough, you can see the Grim Reaper. And it used to really just, like, every night I laid down, because I had to go through double days.
Right.
So I'm from that class of guys that had to go through those. Oh, yeah. I had to go through those double days. And it really, really, really tested your will, what you're doing. And then you talk to older coaches and older ball players that went through it with longer training camp, and it's just like, how, and the horror stories is just, it wasn't really the work, it was just the environment and the fear of the unknown, because when you're a younger player, you just don't know how it goes. Sort of like I'm going into this one with everyone saying it's going to be fun. I don't know how it's going to go, so I'm just going to go there with my attitude right and my hat low and just get to work. And
I'm not sure if I smile, I said it was a nice setup. I didn't say it was like, you're having wine.
Okay, yeah.
We're up there having wine. But.
Yeah, but I training camp itself is just the battle of will. Right. Everyone across the board's competing, and I'm at the situation in my life where I'm asked to give back, but at the same time I got to protect my own job. So it's a really difficult situation for me, but the only thing I can do is work hard. So, that's my standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't really have any horror stories, and I kind of say mine has been a breeze so far. I've had, training camp in Tampa where you don't go anywhere. You stay at your own facility. Yep. You're in a hotel. And then my first 2 training camps actually in the NFL were with my college coach. So guys were asking me how it was going to go. And I'm like, well, why are you asking me? And then the first practice we get out there, I go, oh, this is why. I know all of what's going to happen next. So it was a really easy transition just from that standpoint. And then, last year I wasn't in camp, so that was great. There were pluses and minuses to that. So I'm actually looking forward to this year, seeing what it's like to get away, go up into Napa, just kind of be with the guys for 3 weeks. I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm going to go back to Frostee and the whole double day thing. I'm curious, do you think the game has changed at all? Is it suffered because of the lack of double days? Is the work ethic suffered, or the finished product at all suffered because of the lack of practice?
I can't say it suffered. I think, some people have pushed back a little bit because no double days, meaning, less contact, less tackling and things like that. But the game has to be a little bit safer, too, at the same time. Each and every year, people are getting bigger, stronger, and faster, and those collisions and stuff do add up. And, I still have, sometimes, bad nightmares about the stuff that I had to go through from those double days, just being out there completely exhausted, special teams, both practices, kickoff team, and just having 2.5 hours of that. And, a second practice might just be solely special teams. And when you're a rookie, you got to do it all, right? So, that stuff kind of sucked, but now I think things have eased up for these guys coming in because they don't have double days in college either. So the transition for them isn't like scary like it was for me coming from college and then going to the NFL and not knowing anything, and then just there's vets taking days off and then you just have to do everything. And, that used to go to your core. I'm telling you, I wish we could just like have a call in and like call some of the old guys like, so how was your experience? But seriously, it was so tough when I came in, just because it was the fear unknown. And now, you kind of know you bust your tail for 2.5 hours, you're going to have a walkthrough later, or vice versa. Before it was like, there's no chance I can do this later, and there was a chance you got to do it later, Right. So camp is camp, and treat it like it is. The game needs to be a little bit safer, but at the same time, you just have to take advantage of your 2.5 hours while you're out there. You got to really get after it and exhaust yourself, because that's what's going to show up on tape. That's what your teammates need to know. You're not holding anything back because you do have a walkthrough later. So just give it your all, and it'll all work itself out.
Cool. All right, guys. Hey, we really appreciate you guys coming out. We're looking forward to camp getting underway. You guys report up to Napa on Thursday. First practice on Friday. Jon Gruden is going to be getting the fans riled up out there. You got stadium practice, right, on Saturday over at the high school, right?
Yeah. Didn't know that.
Yeah, didn't know that either. All right, thanks for the heads up.
Napa Stadium. I'm not even sure where that is, but it's a new thing. It's a new wrinkle. So on Saturday morning.
So be it. We'll be there.
All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, that was a good segment. I enjoyed that. How about you, Vic?
It was very nice.
Well, now we've got a less nice segment.
That was the good stuff. Now comes the bad stuff.
We've
still listening.
We've got a couple fellow media members here joining us from the Associated Press, Josh Dubow and Michael Wagaman. And the show's about to deteriorate, so I apologize. What's going on, guys?
You already announced our names. The deterioration has begun.
So how many camps for you guys? What's the number we're at now for you guys, training camps?
2006 is my first, so it's training camp number 13.
13 for you?
I don't even know how to do math, but I've been there.
You did math earlier.
Yeah, but that was because it was from 11 to 12. That was pretty simple. No, I've been covering the team since 96. I didn't cover them their first year back, but when they moved, and they were not actually holding training camp up here, so that first year they were still down in the Southern California. But since they've been back in Napa, I've covered them every year.
So how many head coaches for each of you guys? This is only my...
Well, let's see. They started out, it was Mike White. Then it went to Joe Bugle. Then from Joe, it went to Gruden. Right. That was John's first go-round. Then from John, it went to Bill Callahan.
Norv.
Help me out here.
Norv. Norv is where I came in. I came in with Norv in 2005 after training camp.
I'm sure Manny, Mo, and Jack were in there at some point. I mean, it's honestly, it's just been it's been crazy. It's been crazy the number of head coaches that they've gone back, and for this guy Gruden to be back, like I would have bet the farm. I argued with people over and over that he wasn't going to come back, and
money talks.
Right? Don't I know it?
You getting $100 million too? No. All right, well, training camp gets underway on Friday. The players will be up there Thursday for the always exciting report day. And then Friday, the first practice. I mean, and first real, training camp practice under Jon Gruden in a long time up there in Napa. Just what are you guys looking forward to the most? We'll start with you, Vic. What do you guys, we're going to kind of run down what items, what things are on your kind of to-do list that you want to see starting with training camp out there on Friday? Well,
for me, it's John's brought in so many veteran players, and obviously we don't really know how good they are. I mean, we've heard all of the buzz and why they're going to rediscover the fountain of youth, but we don't really know till we see it. And every position, kind of they're counting on guys who are kind of maybe left somewhere else, not the best of terms, so maybe it's something to prove. So that's a big part of this year. How well they're going to do is based on how those old guys, how they perform.
How about you, Josh?
For me, it's the cornerbacks, how Conley looks coming off the injury and missing all last year. Rashawn Melvin, Worley, Leon Hall, if he has anything left, is one of the veteran guys that Vic talked about. So that's the position that sort of probably interests me the most.
Wags?
For me, I think it's the whole defense in general because, I mean, Josh talked about the secondary. You've got the whole thing with Khalil Mack, and you got a lot of working new pieces in place up front. But to me, what I'm more intrigued about is this is the first time in a long time they've had a credible defensive coordinator.
Yep.
Somebody who you go, wow, this guy can coach. And I mean, the guys that they've had in there, no knock on them, but they were, every time they came in, you were like, yeah, what about this guy? Paul Guenther's resume speaks for itself. And I think that we're going to see some wrinkles in this defense that we haven't seen from the Raiders before. So I'm interested to see how his defense plays out here in Oakland, and specifically what he does with Khalil when that situation gets resolved.
Yeah, Paul's in a great spot because, like you mentioned, the bar is low. I mean, there's definitely not a lot of success here for coordinators, and if they turn it around, Jon Gruden will give them all the credit. Paul Guenther will get the credit for a defensive turnaround. So you mentioned Khalil Mack is going to use him more in one-on-one situations, move him around a little bit. So I think Khalil, when he gets back, I think he'll be in great shape.
Well, I mean, look what he's done right away with Bruce Irvin.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't even been on the job 3-4 months, and he said it makes no sense to drop this guy into coverage. His best thing is moving forward. I mean, that's not rocket science.
Right.
That's something that a proven defensive coordinator comes in and identifies right away. So, you're seeing that, and I think this defense has played on its heels for so long.
Right.
I think we're going to see it start being more aggressive, more attacking style.
It'll be interesting to see if they get the interior pass rush. When Jack was here all 3 years, he talked about we need interior pass rush. We need interior pass rush, and can Mo Hurst do that?
Mo fell in their laps. I'm still not sure what happened, but they got a first-round talent in the 5th round, and he's been great. All the coaches rave about him. He's looked the part of a big-time impact player. So I don't know, long-term wise,
we got a Michigan guy.
Josh is perhaps the greatest Raider since Charles Woodson. I think it's those two are probably the great Raiders.
But besides Josh, others are high on Mo Hurst, and I think Guther's one of them. We're really excited about what he brings to the defense.
That can be if he really pans out. I mean, if you get past the health issues, which clearly the Raiders have, that guy could be a game changer because they haven't had an interior pass rush. And an interior pass rush, you have to look at the domino effect, what that does for the rest of the defense. I mean, that's where it starts. And so, I mean, if this guy's legit.
When you look at the Cincinnati defense, it was Geno Atkins that sort of headlined that defense. Him at the interior rush is what made that defense work. And if Mo Hurst, not that he's going to be Geno Atkins necessarily, but if he can, give that interior pressure, it makes everyone else better, makes the outside guys better, makes the secondary better, makes everyone better.
I kind of feel bad for P.J. Hall. He was a second-round pick, and he's kind of forgotten. They're like, hey, we got Mo Hurst. Well, I was a second-round pick. Nah,
he'll block a couple kicks, though.
Yeah, you're fine. But we got Mo Hurst.
Danico Archer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Okay, well, we've got to talk Khalil Mack because that's, as we keep telling people, okay, yeah, we got a podcast coming. That's what everybody wants to know.
Where's Mack?
Where's Mack
coming?
We need a Mack update.
And
as we keep having to tell people, if there was a Khalil Mack update, you'd have it.
We're not keeping secrets.
He did show up on Twitter, to send his condolences about Tony Sperano's passing. But that's like the first thing I've even heard.
And you see all the replies was like, he's here as RIP coach. And hey, man, when you coming? I need you, man. Sign a deal. Forget about Tony. What about you? We need a pass rush.
Tony, right?
Come on. I mean,
thoughts and prayers, man.
When you come back? But
I mean, Vic. I mean, we know you're close with Khalil. You check in with him from time to time. I know he's been pretty reserved in terms of what he's going to say on this. He doesn't want to talk much about what he plans to do, but. None of us expect to see him on Thursday, Friday, anytime soon. When do you expect to see Khalil Mack?
I don't get the impression they've made any real progress, so I think it's going to be a while. I think maybe camp is, 3 weeks long? Maybe at the end of camp when they get to that third or fourth preseason game. But, yeah, I think Khalil wants a long-term deal. And obviously, but on the other side of the coin, he has, $14 million guaranteed and an option here for his contract. So at some point, you're going to want to get that money if they – don't want to give you a long-term deal. So I think there'll still be negotiations to come, but I think right now I don't get the sense they're close.
I just don't see any way he's going to sign before Aaron Donald signs. And,
right, exactly.
When Aaron Donald signs, that'll set the bar, and Khalil try to match that or pass that. And Aaron Donald's got more of a time crunch to sign because of his vesting issues and all that. The Khalil can just wait it out. And when Aaron Donald makes his deal, Khalil will come in and ask for $1 more or $1 million more, whatever it is, and probably get something pretty similar.
Yeah, I think those two are absolutely playing each other, just kind of the wait and see. But Vic, you brought up, he's going to make 13.9 or 14 million. But even then, he's like, at that position, he's like the 7th or 8th highest paid player for that.
And he's guaranteed nothing beyond this year after that.
And here's,
but he'll get paid this offseason.
Khalil, and I'm just, I haven't talked to him, so I don't know. But if you're Khalil, you see the way that they were proactive with Carr. They were proactive with Gabe Jackson. They were proactive with Kelechi and even Penn. Maybe not proactive, but they reacted right away. This guy's your best player, and it's not even close between he and anybody else. Khalil Mack is the best player on that 53-man roster. Every play, every down, every game. And they're still here, and we're talking about it, and he hasn't got a deal, and it's something that Reggie has sat down with all of us for 2 years and said, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to get this done. If I'm Khalil, I'm ticked. I'm very ticked because I know I'm the best player on that field.
I know Vic and I have talked about this before. I mean, if you're Khalil, you understand locking up Derek Carr. As we've said before, the Gabe Jackson one is probably one where you're saying, did you really have to extend and give a big contract to another offensive lineman when I'm sitting here waiting for my money?
They signed, 25 free agents in the offseason? I mean, it adds up. I'm sure Khalil's like, wait a minute, do some math here. I mean, it adds up. That's a lot of money they got to count to him. So I think, obviously, the Raiders want to get it done at some point, but there's always that, the backup plan. They have the franchise tag, which you didn't want to use, but it's there for a reason for teams that don't want to commit to a guy long-term right now.
But wouldn't you agree, the longer this goes on, and if they put themselves in that position, they're killing themselves in the big picture, in the long term. Yeah, you can franchise him for 2 years, right? You can franchise him for 2 years beyond this year because he's under contract this year. And he'll get paid handsomely, and it won't be about the money. But in this day and age, players who get franchised really develop an animosity towards that team. And so I just think that each day that passes...
I'm not saying it's a good backup plan. I'm just saying it's a backup plan. That's all I'm saying.
At least they've got that, which in the past with this franchise, we haven't been able to say. So,
but he also knows that he's got the guaranteed money of 2 franchise tags waiting there, that they've got to go above that.
Exactly.
Otherwise, why is he going to sign?
I think the bottom line for me is like, all right, so they brought Jon Gruden back. Mark Davis has been courting Jon Gruden for 7 years, stalked him in Florida, drove around, and followed him around town, and knocked on his door every friggin' day. Obviously gave him all the money he wants. So at some point, Jon Gruden's going to say, hey, man, I need Khalil Mack. Get it done. And what's Mark going to say? Nah, we may do it for anything. He's like, okay, all right, we'll get it done. So I just think at some point, Gruden's going to say, enough's enough. I know you guys are going back and forth. I came here to win. I came here to, that's my best player. I need him. I think at some point that will happen. I think it'll get done.
And here's the other flip side. Charles Woodson proved to me when he held out training camp, and I can't even remember what year it was. He missed most of training camp because he wanted a new deal. And he came in and he had a great year that year. Khalil Mack's job is pretty simple. Go get the quarterback.
Yep.
That's what it's going to be here. So if he misses a week or 2 or 3, it's not that big a deal. I'm quite certain Khalil's kept himself in tip-top shape,
But it's usually take, 1 day off in the offseason from working out?
Right. So there, I don't think from his side there's any real, urgency to get a deal done now. They want it done now, obviously, but urgency, I don't think that they feel that right now.
I'm sure somebody wants to come in and talk to Coach Gunther and get the things going and see his new teammates. But you're right. I don't think there's no need to be there on Thursday or Friday.
Right.
I mean, obviously, they would like to get him, but if we get to the week of the season opener, he's not there. You start getting concerned, but because you saw last year with Donald Penn, and that's a different situation. But his holdout probably did affect his play, right? I mean, he did not have a great year last year.
I just think it caused a weird vibe for the whole season for him to do that at that time.
But I do think it's a little different than offensive lineman. I think the offensive line works a little more as a unit, and when you're missing that guy, and when you're in your mid-30s versus your mid-20s, it's a little bit different. But
so let's say they do go into the start of the regular season and Khalil's not signed. What are they going to do with that position?
Tank Carradine, baby.
Tank Carradine. I love the guy when he was in with the Niners.
It's a great name, man.
But the name Tank.
Can you imagine just walk around? What's your name?
Tank.
Oh, that's awesome.
It works if you're as big as you are.
Yeah,
but if you're a scrawny guy, a little tiny guy, you can't be Tank.
You name your kid Tank, you're going to get a defensive lineman out of it.
You got Tank and Frostee. I mean, you got can you beat that? I mean, that's. They've got a lot of options on the defensive line. I mean, nobody is Khalil Mack. That's clear. Nobody is Khalil Mack, but. I mean,
so does it change the way you have to call your defense too?
Well, I mean, you're not basing your defense on a guy that is.
No, but what Khalil does is he enables you. Yeah. He's going to draw so much attention that you can design some things off of that. If that position's not drawing that kind of attention, what's again the domino effect?
Yeah, because does Bruce Irvin draw as much attention if he's your number one pass rusher?
Which right now,
does Arden Key come in and all of a sudden look like a guy that can draw attention?
And that's the guy I'm really kind of interested to really watch, because I didn't see, I wasn't at many of the training camps or off-season camps. I want to see what this kid is. I mean, what did you guys think of Arden Key when you saw him? I mean, you can't really tell so much.
Can't tell, but he looks the part. I mean, he definitely has that lean body, kind of like a young Alden Smith, and he kind of can bend a little bit, gets around the edge. So I see why the coaches are excited about him. I get it. Obviously, he has a history of some issues off the field. Hopefully, he's past that. But just in terms of the player and the raw skills, you see it there.
What are some other big things we want to see? I mean, the running back competition is one that we've kind of gotten the impression from Jon Gruden that there's going to be a split of carries between Marshawn Lynch and Doug Martin. But how do you guys expect the whole running back room to work out, especially when it comes to those backup guys? I mean, do you see a Jalen Richard and a DeAndre Washington both making this team?
I can't see them both making it. I think it's hard to keep them both, especially if Doug Martin is the guy that Gruden seems to really like. Doug Martin, you're not keeping 4 running backs, and those two guys are so similar that I think he's going to want someone a little different. You can do some different things in there. That doesn't seem likely that you're going to see both those guys on the team.
I think I'm kind of intrigued by it because they're two different styles. Doug Martin historically has been more of the flashier slash type runner, whereas Marshawn is a pound 'em, beat 'em kind of guy, and I think if you look at Jon Gruden's history, he's a guy that prefers to ball control, be more of a ball control offense. Let's pound it, let's run it down a team's throat. And I think the two styles can kind of play off of each other, complement each other really well. It's not something they had last year. Yeah, they had the speed of Richard and Washington, but those guys are just not your every down backs. Yeah. If Doug Martin can rebound, it has the potential to be a really, really good 1-2 punch back there. Which I was thinking, what if you line them up together? You can.
I think they will. I think they'll use them together at times. I think definitely both those guys are going to.
And then that forces you as a defense to pick and choose, which now, if you're going to pick and choose on which running back you're going to key on, what about the receivers?
I just don't know if either one of them is a good enough receiver to be able to use them both together. Neither one has really excelled in the passing game, at least in their history. I think it's hard to have two running backs out there if one of them's not a threat as a receiver.
And they can always bring somebody in. They have no problem bringing in veterans. They can always add a running back at some point to the mix. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, and there's going to be more emphasis on the fullback, too, remember, this year. So I think that may be – because when John was here, he had John Ritchie.
Right.
John Ritchie was really good as a receiver out of the backfield. And so you're going to see, I think, some more of those kind of wrinkles in. I think if memory serves me correct, the fullback was more or less always that safety net for Carr. Carr's safety net, since he's been here, has been more the tight end. That underneath stuff, but if memory serves me correct, it was always the fullback that was the safety net, the bailout guy if you couldn't get the guy deep. So,
well, what do you expect out of Carr's weapons this year? They add in Jordy Nelson, that replaces essentially Michael Crabtree. Is that a push? Is that an upgrade? They add in, a guy in Martavis Bryant who, we all know about the report on the last day of minicamp that he could be facing discipline. It was a kind of flimsy report that we don't really know a whole lot about. But if they are able to, if Jordy Nelson ends up being an upgrade or at least a push with Michael Crabtree, and they add a Martavis Bryant, how much does that upgrade their offense?
I was not when they signed Jordy Nelson. I wasn't as excited about that move as I was when they added Martavis Bryant, because now, if Jordy is your number two. Yeah, I don't know if he's got that still at that production level to really be a solid number two. But now you have Martavis Bryant, and whatever happens, happens. Like you said, that report, I don't know that it holds a whole lot of water right now. But if let's just go on the assumption that he's going to be there and everything's going to be fine. He's going to be that, he and Amari are going to be able to stretch the field. And that's going to open up the middle for Jordy and Jared Cook. And now that they've got a number 3 guy in there, I feel better about the Jordy Nelson move. I think now I can say, I think it's going to be as good, if not better, than Michael Crabtree. Now, where they're going to lose, hurt, and miss Crabtree is that goal line fade.
Yeah.
That was one of the best connections. Carr to Crabtree, that little fade was beautiful
Only
to watch.
The 49ers could have figured out how to execute that play. They'd have 6 rings.
But I don't think anything matters to Jordy Nelson and Martavis Bryant if Amari Cooper doesn't get back to where he was.
Agreed.
Right. They need Amari Cooper to be a number 1 receiver, and if he's not a number 1 receiver, the other guys aren't good enough to fill that role, and the offense won't be good enough if Amari's
it's
not
probably
back.
the best overall receiving core that they've had in a while in terms of 1 through 4. Ryan Switzer has some flash in the slot, so I think it's a pretty nice group.
Yeah, and when you look at what they've got at tight end, and I think that often gets overlooked. Jared Cook had a monster year last year. He single-handedly, to me, won that Kansas City game.
Oh, no doubt.
They just need more consistency, I think. And I know Vic has a piece coming out Tuesday morning where it mentions that they forgot about him at times. And I think that's probably kind of the story of Jared Cook's career, where he has these big highs, but then he has games where he disappears.
How much of that was just the whole what was going on with the coaching staff and
the whole
Carr?
Was a mess.
That was one of the weirdest years, especially because of coming off the year, the 2 years that they had before. It was like totally inexplicable.
Right.
So,
all right, well, let's talk a little bit about the defense. And
wait, I forgot about the big battle at quarterback. Connor Cook and E.J. Manuel.
well,
Who you guys got? I got E.J.
I don't want to piggyback on you, but
Not piggyback me, no.
On the radio,
you got Cook.
On audio, I can piggyback on you. Video, I won't. But what more important to me, seriously, than that is, and I think something that gets overlooked again, is what's going to happen at right tackle. That to me, they haven't figured that out for what? 3, 4, 5,
Yeah,
6
but you got to
years?
figure it's going to be the veteran guy. You got Cable, you got Gruden, a lot of veterans. I think Giacomini's pretty much got it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not Breno in the open. I mean,
Okay, but what do you think about him? Is he going to be better than Marshall Newhouse? Is he going to be?
we're talking about a low bar, right?
Right, exactly. And I know people don't put a lot of emphasis.
When the other 4 guys are as good as they are, I mean,
I know it's nitpicking, but I think it's still important because you have to deploy. If you get an average or subpar guy over there, now you got to put your tight end over there and block more. And I think if they can get that situation resolved, the other 4 obviously are very, very good. And
even if it is Breno, he's just going to be a stopgap guy. At some point, Parker, you drafted him in the 3rd round,
Right.
he's going to be your right tackle. So if not ready, which I don't think he will be at the end of this camp, at some point this year you would hope he's ready. And then, so I think Breno just is a guy who keeps your quarterback standing.
What do you think they do with Colton this year?
I have a feeling Colton's not going to play much. I really think Donald Penn's going to win that job. I might say he might win it easily. I think Colton's going to be kind of just maybe a weight room guy, kind of get stronger, get bigger, and just kind of obviously he's a left tackle of the future.
Be the guy that come in, tackle eligible
Yeah, can tackle eligible plays. I just think that I don't get the impression he's going to be ready in time this year, and I think they're not going to take chances with Carr. Actually, back there with this tough AFC West pass rushers, like some of the best guys in the league in the AFC West, trying to kill Carr. So, my guess, my feeling is that Colton is your left tackle next year, no doubt about it.
And it seemed like he had issues switching from right to left in college. That you might as well just put him in at left.
yeah. And
Build him as your left
Hey,
tackle.
but man, he got 2 snaps at right tackle on that one practice, so he's going to play right tackle.
So if he takes a year where he's backing up Donald Penn as the left tackle, and then he can step in next year, and that's fine. I don't think you need to mess with him. And
if you can ease a guy in at that position too, instead of just throwing him to the wolves, I mean, obviously that position has the importance value that it does for a reason. And if you can give him a year to kind of get acclimated, a year to work with Tom Cable and to learn from Donald Penn and Kalechi and some of these guys that are veterans, it could be a great learning experience. You don't see a first round pick sitting very often.
That's my thing. Is like, can this roster afford a redshirt year for its first round pick? I mean, you saw how Jon Gruden felt about this roster by the way he treated it. And can you really just redshirt your first round pick, considering you just redshirted your first round pick the year before, and he kind of like got, and then your first round pick from the year before still a work in progress there in Carl Joseph. I mean, 2 straight years of redshirting your first round pick?
yeah, I think it's going to depend. If it turns out that he's your left tackle for 10 years, starting
fine.
next year, then I think you're fine redshirting him. But obviously, it's not ideal, especially if the guy the Niners took one spot ahead that you may have wanted even more comes in and has a good year. It's going to make
I think
mad at Rod Woodson again.
What will help in this whole evaluation thing is that Donald Penn is probably not going to be ready for the start of camp, right? Or is he going to be ready?
I think it could be close. I think
be close.
I think it's
Okay,
close.
but I think that Colton's going to get some work
Good time
with that, maybe a little bit more, and so we'll get a better evaluation of this kid. I'm like you, man. First round pick, you don't want to see him standing on the sidelines. I mean, especially for a franchise like in this position. But I mean, if Donald Penn is the guy and he looks like he's back to playing like he was before, you may have no option but to redshirt him.
All right, so now we're going to flip over to the defense.
Right,
now that we've settled the tackle debate and the backup quarterback debate, that Vic's really fired up about the
That's a big one.
You know what? Let's go. I'll take Connor just for lunch.
I will say Gruden definitely is giving Connor most of the snaps in the offseason. I think he wants Connor to show him something. So I'm not totally like gung ho on my EJ pick. I think EJ's a better quarterback right now.
Yeah, of course.
Upside in terms of what Gruden thinks in terms of the future, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, he's younger. He's got a better arm, but now can he develop? That's the only thing.
I haven't seen anything.
Can he? Well,
I haven't seen
And that's
the
you only have him for 1 year under contract anyway. You're running out of time to develop him.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Right.
But and that's a good point. But again, I don't even think that matters because Jon Gruden will figure out whether this guy can play quarterback or not. We'll know by the end of training camp what John feels about Connor Cook.
And also remember, Jon Gruden's worked with about 35 different quarterbacks in the NFL this year at his Gruden camp.
Yeah,
Many of whom are going to be available next year as backups.
love them all.
And love them all. So he's got plenty of choices to bring in next year.
I
Connor
don't
Cook
think
and
John's
EJ
ever met a
going out the
player on the
backups that he
record
envisions.
that he doesn't love.
On the record, right? Exactly.
All right, well, on the defensive, I think we would all probably agree the biggest acquisition they made was getting in Paul Gunther, a defensive coordinator who you just feel like this guy knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. He's going to make the guys on that defense better.
but are they going to be better? Linebacker has been a position that has been such a big question mark for how many years here with the Raiders, and it's still a question mark, right?
Mm-hmm. They're going to be better. I'm a big believer in Gunther. I love the defenses in Cincinnati. The Zimmer style of defense has worked. Gunther did a great job in Cincinnati. I think he's going to be able to get more out of these guys than they've gotten out of them in the past. And I think the defense, will it be top 10 defense? No, I don't think they have the talent for that. But will the defense be, bottom 5 like it's been the last few years? No. It'll be a middle of the pack defense. And if the offense if Jon Gruden can turn around the offense and Derek Carr can turn around the offense, I think the defense is going to be good enough to help them.
I'm going to go and make you happy, Vic. I'm going to point to Cal and Justin Wilcox. And when his team took over, when his staff took over, no, listen, what they did, what they took, but he took him. But you had a guy who knew what he was doing defensively, and he took his secondary, who couldn't. There was like 2 or 3 guys in there who couldn't even start the year before under the previous coaching regime, and they played well in him. Coaching is a big difference. It definitely matters, and
which I think Reggie's counting on, because all these draft picks that he's getting ripped for, like, you picked all these terrible players. He's like, well, they weren't coached up. So Reggie's looking at all these guys' last few draft classes and like, hey, let's see what Gruden can do with these guys.
He picked the head coach, though.
Right.
He did.
But from
we're talking about players.
But from that, even from that perspective, we will be able to see now. Okay, now they're coached up. Now what's the excuse going to be?
I wasn't bad drafting Reggie.
Exactly.
I am just really disappointed we're not going to get to get definitive answer on could Jihad Ward be an Impact Raider. That's disappointing.
Impact Raider, but maybe we'll see him at the Impact Cowboy.
Cowboy, yeah.
Early buzz is good in Dallas. They like him. He looked good in OTA. Whatever that means.
Okay, but
there's no buzz in Jihad Ward here.
But I love
any buzz in Dallas.
How do you sack Nick Foles more than the Patriots did in the Super Bowl? If the Patriots had Jihad Ward in the Super Bowl, maybe they would have won.
No one has more obscure stats knowledge than Josh Dubow.
How many beers have you had?
It doesn't matter. He is the obscure stat king.
All right.
I think he runs the Twitter account Blake Bortle Facts.
I can see that.
You guys follow that account? It's pretty good.
It's a good account.
It's a good account. The secondary is, Josh brought it up as a big area that he wants to watch, and Garyon Conley, is this guy going to be a number 1 corner? We think talent-wise he is. It's a matter of keeping him on the field and getting him healthy. And we saw him on the field at the start of minicamp, and then with a groin injury. I think we're gonna need to see him early on be out there basically every day in training camp and making some plays, just so the Raiders can develop some confidence in him, so he can develop some confidence in himself, and just start showing that he can stack up practices and be a guy.
I think the guys they have with him, I think they have more talent at cornerback besides Garyon Conley than they had in the past. I think Melvin can be pretty good. Maybe Worley can. I think they have some other guys back there that it's not going to all be on Conley. Though hopefully, for their sake, they'll have guys who.
Melvin's a weird deal. Melvin's a guy who's coming here pretty much saying, "Look, I'm going to have a big year, and I'm going somewhere else."
He was good last year.
That's just amazing. They have no chance if he does what they think he's going to do. They have no chance to resign him.
They could franchise him if they're not using on Khalil. If he's good,
it's kind of cool for them. They're getting a great player, maybe at a reduced price. But I just think it's funny how if he comes in, fits in, it all goes out great. All right, man. See you later. Thanks a lot for that 1 year.
It just makes me think of
the bookie cousins. I'm like, you get 1 year.
You guys are drunk, man. I went to the bar is a bad idea.
1.5 beers in, I'm good. That's the goal, right?
Yeah, that's the goal.
They've got to, if they don't but this goes back to the interior pass rush, I think, because if they can get that pass rush to going, then those issues in the secondary, which I'm not convinced that they're taken care of. We don't know about Conley. We really don't know about Obi.
Yeah, is he an NFL player?
Safeties are a big question.
Carl Joseph,
Reggie Nelson, Vic's guy.
Vic's favorite, Vic's.
Well, we all know why Reggie Nelson is back, and he's back for one reason, and that's because Vic.
That's the reason,
right? Vic Tafur.
Big ass Reggie.
And
we're talking about coaching. Obviously, if he has a good coach, maybe he can play. Maybe last year wasn't on him.
He was a Pro Bowler under Ken Norton Jr.
That's right.
But when we were talking about coaching,
they're gonna trade him to Seattle.
No, seriously, we were talking about coaching. How many times in the last 2 years have you sat there during the defensive coordinator's press conference, and literally shook your head and what is he talking about?
Yeah.
How many defensive coordinator press conferences did I just skip?
Right. It was like, I'm going to the locker room.
Tarver was This can't miss, man. That was.
Gunther has the benefit of the doubt. So if Gunther says, I can use Reggie Nelson, he's going to play well for me, I'm like, all right, I believe you.
I believe you.
I believe you. I'm in.
How much rope do you think that Jon Gruden has? And I asked
10
that
years
because,
at $100 million.
well, I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about. Give me more. I'm not talking about from ownership. I'm saying, okay, you got him going out and this dinner thing, which was great. You know, I mean, it drew, I don't know how many people were there, but how many coaches in any sport you see doing it. It's great. The love affair is amazing. But is that going to buy him more time?
Yes.
Or is that setting the bar so high?
Reggie's the fall man, right?
Reggie will be the fall man.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
for 1 year. And he gets this year as Reggie's the fall man.
Especially if you look at if the draft classes that have not done well the last couple of years still don't do well. If your first-round pick, red shirts. If your third-round pick, Brandon Parker doesn't play much. If P.J. Hall isn't a guy, if your fifth-round pick ends up being your best draft pick,
well, he's going to be a Pro Bowl, All-Pro, Hall of Famer, so he'll be okay.
I mean,
that Michigan guy?
Oh, yeah. I think that's where he went to school.
How many times did he beat Michigan State?
1.
Oh, my God.
Even their fourth-rounder, Nick Nelson, is a guy that we don't even talk about. I mean, we
didn't see him in the offseason protocol,
he was injured.
But he's another cornerback.
Gruden's like, okay, maybe he might compete at nickel. I mean, they've got a fourth-round pick that we didn't even talk about. I mean, they could conceivably go in with their first four-round picks, like not even really having a role on week 1.
Now, how do you look at it? Do you look at it as like
Gruden,
is that a positive? Like, oh my gosh, we're good that we don't have to have these guys, or oh my God, we drafted so terribly that these guys are.
If they're 13-3 and those guys aren't needed, then sure.
Right.
If they're 7-9,
if the Raiders finish 13-3, I will buy drinks for this entire table from 8 a.m. until 9 a.m.
Who's got the most expensive Bloody Marys in town? All right, we're going to hit one final topic before we go. Kind of one of the big news topics over the last week or so with the Raiders is obviously the replacing of Greg Papa as the team's radio play-by-play voice. Brent Musburger, 79 years young, coming in to take over. And this is a move that I think not wholly unexpected, maybe a couple of years down the road, but I think probably a lot of us thought, okay, yeah, Papa might not go to Vegas. I know he went on the radio and said nobody ever asked him. He was open to it. He didn't mind flying in on a Friday and doing a game hungover on a Sunday, which does that surprise anybody? That he would just like straight out admit that.
It makes me respect him a little bit more.
But what do you guys think of this move to replace him at this point, to go to Brent Musburger at this point and let him come in and broadcast the last couple of years here before they go to Vegas?
I think it sucks. I think I feel bad enough for the Oakland fans. I just think that it was a chance for them to have their guy. 21 years has been doing this. For at least give him, if not one more year, give him 2 years to finish it out in Oakland and have a new guy. Now, I get why they're not doing that. You want someone to kind of bridge the gap, but I just think it's unfortunate for Raider fans who love Papa so much and he's meant so much to the people who've been following this team for 21 years. I just think it's really a bad way to do things. There's not even a chance to have a goodbye broadcast or a game, kind of a farewell. I just didn't like it at all.
When I moved out here in 2004. I didn't know anything about Greg Papa. Thought it was Bob Papa, the Giants announcer's brother. Not true. And listened to Raider games that year on the radio sometime. He is an unbelievable football radio broadcast. Like the description you get, you know what's going on when Greg's calling the game. He is one of the best. And I've listened to football on the radio. I've listened to a lot of it. Listened to Westwood One games, all that. Greg's as good as they are, and to get rid of him just doesn't make sense to me. But
I don't know. I mean, I
like Brent Musburger.
No. I honestly think
he likes Catherine Webb.
I think Brent Musburger's only a stopgap, obviously, because he's 79. Come on, man. Like, Vince Scully's the only guy, and Chick Hearn.
John Sterling's in his 80s with the Yankees.
All right. But those are legends.
And broadcasting baseball versus broadcasting radio football.
Right.
Radio football is so much more challenging.
That's only once a week. It's not 162 games a year.
True, but that's what made Bill King so stinking good. Was I would be in my room as a kid, radio on, and I was like there. And Greg was good. I'm not taking anything away from him. His resume speaks for itself. But I think there are extenuating circumstances at play here. I'm not completely surprised. The timing, given the fact that the Vegas thing and all that, it's kind of funky. But, I mean, it's Mark's team. Hey, look, Mark, we can sit here and say all these crazy things, but Mark did a couple things that his dad couldn't do. Got a new stadium, got Jon Gruden back. If this is what he wants to do, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, more power to you. I won't be listening on the radio, but...
That's the beauty of us being at the games. We don't listen on the radio much anyway. Maybe some road games I might listen to a little bit here and there driving to the store. All right, before we get out of here, we're heading up to Napa. What's your guys' favorite spot to go hit up in Napa?
Ooh. I like Hog Island Oyster. Once a year, I got to make sure I make my Hog Island Oyster stop at the food hall in downtown Napa.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of this spot? Because he's never invited you or I ever.
It is good.
Ever.
Who you taking there? Who you
right, exactly. I've never even heard of this spot.
You go by yourself?
For the 2:30 practice, you get there right before.
By himself.
You get a little clams and some oysters and a drink.
You learn things, something new every day.
Yeah, it's nice.
How about that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oxbow
I've been covering the team for 20-something years. Right. I see how it is. All right, Vic. Where are places that you and I...
sandwich place that with the market. That's my spot. That's all I got.
Did you know? Genova, you got it.
Genova's good.
Yep.
The Red Hen has kind of gone down, but the Via Corona is always a good spot right across.
And there's that other place. What's it called?
There's a good whiskey bar downtown. I can't remember what it's called.
Hey man! Shout out to Red Rock.
Red Rock.
You gotta go there. The only place that still gives you
good.
The old-fashioned milkshakes in the tin, and oh my God, it's like a coma waiting to happen.
Like once a year, like once every training camp, because that's basically all my arteries can take. I got to go have a burger and squeeze in.
Yes,
squeeze in burger.
We haven't done
the ahi burger.
We've never, as a group, gone up wine tasting or any of that stuff. We went to a tequila bar one night.
I'll pass on that.
No,
the whiskey bar is called Bounty Hunter. That's why I just thought of it. It's a good spot. We'll go there this year. Bounty Hunter downtown.
Here we go again with the we'll go there this year.
But I was talking to these two guys.
Right. Mike, let's go out and have a beer before training camp, and I never hear anything.
Nobody wants to hear stuff on this show, man. You're whining in personal business.
Hey,
we're
talking football,
The new
man.
Stone Brewery is up there this year. That's open now, so we get to we get to go grab beer there. I'm a wine club member at Visa Tui, so I got free tasting for 4 anytime.
Oh, we're going.
We got 4 of us.
It might pair well with the oysters. They might pair well.
Well, you said you don't want to go wine tasting.
Side note, I got married at Visa Tui. I'm divorced, but side note. Great place.
Great story, Mike. That's a great story.
The party was well worth everything I went through.
And your son turned out well, so there you go.
Exactly.
Cheers.
And with that, we will sign off. Get ready for training camp up in Napa. Make sure you check out all of Vic's previews and everything to get ready for training camp over at the Athletic. And we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Let's have a fun season. Cheers.
Cheers.